The Reno County Planning Commission meeting for August 15th, 2024 is ready to go. Mark, would you call the roll?
Shortfager, Strand.
Here.
Schaefer.
Here.
Seltzer. Here. Macklin.
Here.
Martin.
Here.
Gertson.
Okay, welcome everybody. We need to approve the minutes for the July 29th meeting.
I have one slight correction on page 7, that paragraph that I was talking in. Says based on other land uses already approved. Although those were not all approved, they were examples in our regulatory verbiage. They're still subject to the
Conditional use permits.
yeah.
I think he probably said approved on the tape, so we can change that word. Do you want to say, what do you want to,
Well, I know at the end, I did say they're still subject to the,
subject to that, and so you want
yeah.
Just
to
get
change
rid,
that word to,
just delete the already approved. Based on other land uses, it makes it whatever.
yeah, you can do that. You
That's
just
fine.
delete the words already approved.
That's fine.
Okay.
Anything else? Okay, I would welcome a motion to,
Move the minutes be approved as corrected.
Second.
okay, all in favor, say aye. Opposed? All right.
I gotta wait till we say aye before you say opposed.
Oh. I'm trying to set a record. Show that it's Russ's fault that these meetings last. Okay. Kansas Supreme Court has defined a rezone or a conditional use permit public hearing as a quasi-judicial function to ensure the rights of all parties of interest and to provide an opportunity for each party to address the Planning Commission in an orderly manner. The Planning Commission will follow the fact-finding procedure which is outlined on the handout in your chair. Your attention to this procedure is appreciated. If a recommendation is made tonight, that recommendation will be based upon the record of information presented to the Planning Commission. The County Commission will not conduct a separate public hearing or accept additional written documents. The County Commissioners will consider written requests for additional public comment or documents based only on valid claims that the public hearing process was incomplete or based upon new information that has become available since the public hearing. For purposes of this County Commission policy, a public hearing is considered incomplete only if the Planning Commission failed to follow its procedural guidelines, resulted in a denial of due process to a party of interest, or if the Planning Commission failed to allow an interested party an opportunity for public comment. For purposes of the County Commission policy, new information shall pertain only to germane information which did not exist at the time of the public hearing or which was unknown or could not have been discovered with reasonable diligence. An example may be a traffic study completed after the Planning Commission recommendation. The Planning Commission recommendation to the County Commissioners will be accompanied by a summary of proceedings before the Planning Commission at its public hearing, along with the report and recommendations of the county planner, letters, informal petitions, and other information constituting the record of proceedings provided to the Planning Commission before and during the public hearing. If the Planning Commission makes a recommendation after tonight's hearing, this case will be presented to the County Commissioners at their next available meeting after the protest period expires. Contact planning staff or visit the website for the County Commission agenda items. Any party who wishes to require the County Commissioners to decide this case by a supermajority vote may file a protest petition pursuant to KSA 12-757 at the office of the Reno County Clerk, 125 West First Avenue, Hutchinson, Kansas, within 14 days following the decision by the Planning Commission. The form is on the Reno County website, Planning Department webpage. I'll now formally open public hearing for case number 2024-09. Curtis and Karen Golden, legal description. There we go. Okay. Do any planning commissioner members have had any outside contact regarding this case?
No.
Okay. Do any planning commission members have a conflict of interest in this case?
No.
Okay, well, the applicant, please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and you have 10 minutes to present your case. Additional time may be allocated to the applicant at the discretion of the chairman. Planning commission members may request clarification at the end of your presentation or have additional questions.
Thank you.
Okay,
I'm Curtis Golden, with Ohio here in Golden. We currently operate a breeding facility on our conditional use permit that was originally back in 2015. So we're asking to modify that to, not for the number of dogs, just that we have the same number of dogs. What we're doing is just, we've sold local dogs, people here that have bought local dogs, and demand is also phone calls for wanting boarding and training type options for the dog. We presently don't offer that. So I thought that would be a good change in our business model to allow or to, meet the customer's demand for our local area. So really just a matter of amending and changing the original plan to allow, for boarding and or grooming and or dog training as needs, may arise necessarily. I'm not really sure what all you need necessarily as far as information for that, but the current driveway on 8112 is my personal driveway, and there is a driveway there. Subsequently, we've put a driveway in on the 8114, which is kind of hard to see by this map, but there's just a gravel drive straight in, and there's 2 parking spots there. We can expand that to 4 spots right in front of the building. On the driveway on 8112, there's a parking to the right. So this is the gravel that's here. We 2 spots here. We can make that 4 spots wide. Honestly, most people are just going to come in, drop their dog off, and they're going to leave. It's not like they're going to stay for 30 minutes and have coffee or something. They're just dropping their dog off and they're leaving. So I don't really think having a significant number of parking places is going to be warranted. Unless everybody shows up at once, but they're just going to drop them off and leave, and when their boarding stay is over, they would come and pick them up. We can use these additional spots here on this driveway here, and we could put additional spots back here for either employees or overflow parking if people show up at once. And our personal residence is here, and then so we would put our personal cars here. Kind of subdividing the use of the property to, if someone's coming to pick up a puppy that they're buying from us, this is actually a little building here. It's going to be Prairie Hill Puppies. 8112, they would come there to pick up their puppy. If they're going to be boarding, they would drop them off up here at 8114. So that way we'd have, 2 separate places. That way somebody wouldn't be bringing their Doberman in when I had a little puppy in there and somebody's picking up a little puppy. So, just so there's 2 different locations per se. And that's pretty much the drawing of what it is now and how we're proposing to change it. This is already gravelled here, that's all gravel there. We would need to add a little bit of gravel here that we do not have in order to make that 4 spaces work. I could add a little gravel there to make it just a little wider, but I don't know if there's any other pieces of information that I could need to cover at this point, or.
Now, the question I have, okay, the the main building up there where the kennels are, those indoor-outdoor runs and?
Yes, sir, that's a 30 by 100, and then these are all the outside runs. You can kind of see the
Yeah.
chain links fence, right, so these are 20 feet, outdoor runs.
And then that
This is a subsequent building we added,
Okay.
and it's actually, right now, it's vacant. I mean, there's nothing, we don't use it for anything right now. The goal is to either use this for, either move the breeding into here, or move dog boarding into there as warranted. You know, in other words, if customer demand, if we need more boarding, then we'll just make it more boarding and
The
less
general
breeding.
area around the kennels, is that all fenced for an
Yes.
exercise area? Or
It's double fenced, yeah, it's all fenced, wood fence all the way around, and then their chain link fences in here, so if they get out of their chain link fence, then they have a wood fence they would have to get out, so it's all double fence. This is the big fence back here on the north side, south side.
How tall is that big fence?
It's, what is that, 6 foot?
Six.
I think it's 6 foot fence. Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty much schematics of it.
Okay.
You got
Any other questions for the applicant?
I'm curious about, you've been in business, what, since
2015.
2015? So what's been your history of how many dogs at the property at the time, one time?
It fluctuates, 50 to 60 to 70 to 80, depending on how many puppies. Sometimes we have 10 or 15 puppies at once, maybe we might have 30 or 40 puppies. It's just depending on whelping seasons, with spring, summer, fall, sometimes you'll have 3 or 4 litters at once, or in that month, let's say.
And if you start boarding dogs, how does that number change?
Well, we've reduced the number of boarding, we probably by 20 or more lately. In other words, we're reducing the breeding stack. What we're doing is, as far as the state is required, this, you can't really see this, but this is like air conditioner there, so this is just a break. In other words, this is concrete, a break, and then there's concrete. And so we're going to build a wall here to divide this half from this half. So they're requiring a, quote, break from boarding and breeding. You can't intermingle them all together. Does that make sense? So
I have another picture that might maybe help a little bit more. If you can see it potentially.
So this here's like we were talking, there's a break there. So this right here is basically zero. There's no dog. Right now, I think there's like 2 dogs or 2 or 3 dogs in this first half. So that would have normally held more dogs for breeding purposes. So the breeding numbers are going down and more down. And then, so that'll allow us to add, like I said, if all of a sudden we were full on the boarding side, then we would still be under our approved number.
And that number is 100, is that correct?
That's correct, sir.
So your intent in the future is not to exceed the 100, even combining boarding and
Correct.
selling puppies and breeding?
Yeah, getting old, so we're going to do less. But
I have a question. I grew up on a hog farm, so waste disposal is kind of a big deal. And I know that the health department, everybody is signed off apparently.
Yeah.
But I think about the waste generated by 80 to 100, whatever the number is. How does that function on your site, and where is the water well that you use?
Okay, the supply well, back to the house, pick that other well, is right here. There's a little white dot. I think that is their supply well. So it's enough distance. And this is our runoff for the, we physically spray these outside runs
Pick up the
with,
solids.
pick up the solids and then we spray them.
And that white area is the
That's a
runoff channel?
Right, and then on the north side, They didn't require us to put a full runoff necessarily. We just sprayed it into the grass. The number, I think it's like .01. It's a dog has a very small rating as far as its waste compared, like you're talking a hog farm or you're talking a cow, significant differences in sizes there. So 100 dogs is like .10, on the number of waste disposables, gray scale. It's very small. So
I've had 2 dogs at once, and it just seemed like, oh my gosh.
I mean, I totally get what you're saying there, but yeah, and so the grass filter is approved. In other words, they pick up the solids and the runoff into the grass filter is acceptable. Yeah. So yeah, the goal is to downsize the breeding side, upside the boarding side. That would keep the numbers under.
Do you foresee an increase in vehicle traffic? Or is it you think there's gonna be a lot of cars going in and out?
Not particularly. I mean, I think, we're adding boarding, so I mean, I think there would be an additional traffic there. But I think as far as the number of cars, should be light compared to, and like I said, just because it's not like a retail business where they come and shop and stay. You're just gonna be there dropping your dog and then leaving. So I don't really see that, a big demand for parking spots at this point,
It's less time and people actually stay and pick
Yeah,
up
we've had
puppy.
people stay for 2 hours trying to pick out a puppy, They can't decide which one they want or which one they like, which is, we're more than welcome to accommodate their request. But like you said, if you're dropping off your dog, to be boarded, you're gonna be there a couple minutes. Here's my dog, we're out of here type thing. I don't really think, 5-10 minutes, I would think. So whether the number of traffic count may go up because there would be more local customers per se. But if we're selling less dogs honestly now than we were, so I mean the traffic count is going down on that behalf. So where people aren't coming as often.
You said something, I think, in your application about possibly doing a doggy daycare thing in addition to like overnight boarding.
Right. So in other words, somebody could just drop their dog off during the day, and could let it come and play with some other dogs, and then go home that day. So the same thing, they would just drop it off in the morning and then pick it up at night. And we could also, depending on different training programs, I don't have a trainer at the moment that would fill this need because we just don't have the demand for it yet. But potentially, we could do a training function the same way. They could either drop it off, we could do training, they could pick up their dog, or we could board and train, which they just drop it off, we keep it for a couple weeks, and then they come pick it up, something like that. So.
Well, you can teach a dog in 2 weeks. I've got one I'll turn over to you.
It just depends on what you want to teach it in that amount of time. You're not saying we can do that or not. Okay, any other questions?
All right. Ready for the staff report?
Mark Blanchard, county planner. So I'm going to go through some of my slides and just try to maybe reemphasize what Mr. Gold had said. Back in 2015, we did what we called a special use permit for a dog breeding only facility. And if you looked at those conditions that I put in the staff report at that time, it was for breeding only, not boarding and doggy daycare and other types of services. And so that's why we're back here before you tonight seeking an expansion of that special use permit. Now we call them conditional use permits. And as you see on the screen, we're located at 82nd and Yagi Road here, so we're kind of northwest of the city of Hutchinson. He's got the existing facility that is out there right now. As you'd heard also, 100 dogs was what was permitted originally. The reason we did 100 dogs was the fact that we didn't want to have Mr. Golden come back, to get another special use permit. We typically do that with a lot of our conditional use permits. We put enough of a cushion in there where if they go over a little bit, it's not that kind of a deal where they have to come back. And so I think probably at that time, it was like we never had any intention of having over 100 dogs or 100 dogs on the property. As you're hearing say, he's around 75 to 80 here, and now it's a transition period where it'd be less breeding, maybe more boarding, vice versa. But the thing I want to point out is the fact that, the 100 dog is still going to be the maximum that's going to be permitted on the property. And so in that area, it's mainly agricultural here. You do, on property number 7, have a house that's right there. The only other house that's in that area is on property number 10 that you see on the map. No public comments received, either in writing or verbally. Again, the site plan, he's shown you before where his parking is. He's looking at 6 down here on the main drive, plus behind his fence, he's gonna have another 7, and then he's gonna add a couple more out there for the boarding type of facility instead of just having the 2. And so you're looking at a total of 17 spaces here. Regulations do require 12. I think the 17 is probably an accurate number and a good number based on the fact that if he does add additional employees there, he's got 2 currently right now. If other ones are going to be there, you're going to be taking up 4 spaces right there. And so I think the number that he's provided here is more than adequate for that type of land use that's going on. As you heard him say, if you're picking up a dog, you might be there a little bit longer, which that could be a situation. If you're going to be boarding it or dropping it off for a day, you're not going to be there that long. And so I feel like the 17 total spaces that he's providing is going to be accurate. This is a picture of the actual property. We kind of looked at these real briefly here. You can see his main driveway that leads into the house. The first parking area is going to be right as you go in, and then he's got a secondary parking area right here. Then the other parking area is up on the top. And this would be looking east at the 2 properties. So here's the existing kennel facility, and then his house, and then there's the building that he constructed a few years ago that he got a permit for. This would be looking south. You can kind of maybe, you mentioned it, the break, you can see the break in between the kennels right there. So 82nd is going to be on the bottom of the slide there. Lastly, this would be one looking back to the west, so Yagi Road is going to be at the top of the picture. A couple of ground shots I have so you can see actually what the parking lots look like, at least in January of 2024. So this is a picture of the actual facility and his house right next door. This would be the driveway. At the time, it was winter time, so you can see that's where he's going to be expanding this a little bit more and add a couple more stalls for the boarding facility. And then lastly here is the main parking area. And then the auxiliary or the reserve parking area would be behind his fence. So since there's nobody really in the audience here, I'm going to probably just stand on the merits of my report here. I would just confirm that staff is recommending approval of this based off of the 10 factors that you see, and then I've attached 7 conditions of approval with that. So I think with that, I'll conclude my presentation and stand for questions.
I think the applicant should be complimented on the fact that when they change their mode of business to come get approval.
Yep, he contacted me early on in the process here and asked if he could transition to boarding and other types of services out there related to the dogs. And I reviewed the case back from 2014, 2015, and unfortunately, the way the conditions were written at the time, it was only for a breeding facility. And so unfortunately, I had to say, yeah, you have to go back through that conditional use permit process again. But yeah, he's been very upfront and very good to work with. Okay.
Does the applicant wish to rebut any statements?
We have.
I've got a couple pictures of some of
Of what?
what the runs look like, but I don't know if any way of putting them up there.
But we did show you. We took
Show it, you want it? If the board wishes, yeah, you can look at it right quick.
This is kind
what we're
of,
working towards,
yeah, that's
pass it around.
Okay.
they're gonna be more of a upscale.
We're
most-
trying to,
Most of the ones in the front half there are 5 feet wide by 12 feet long, so it's gonna be rather large comparatively to most, boarding facilities are usually a minimum style space square. So we're putting in a cot and a orthopedic bed and
TVs.
carpet and
Rugs.
tile floor.
Piped-in music,
Some TV. We're gonna-
swimming pool.
They're
we'd
not
like to get it to where,
Well, that way
we
they're
might eventually just try to maybe get out of the,
breeding all
if we can
together.
get it to go over, maybe just not do puppy, like I said, the older we get, it's hard work breeding puppy, You're up with the puppies all night, Not that you wouldn't be checking on
Yeah, and I
people's
have,
dogs, but,
I have an app on my phone too that I can pull up
we
the,
put little cameras in
The
so we can
cameras.
watch
I can pull up it on my phone. I can-
people's, their,
All the
the
runs
boarding
have video.
dogs, so we can watch them while we're away. He can pull it up on his phone and watch people's dogs. Like if we go to dinner or something, we can still have an eye on everybody's dogs.
And I can pull up and show, what's live view.
Does staff wish to rebut any?
I have no further statements.
Okay,
Mr. Vice
do you
Chair.
have any further questions?
It should be pretty nice when we get it all done. It's just like, we've been working hard on it.
Okay, if there's no further discussion or questions, entertain a motion.
I move that case number 2024-09, the request by Curtis and Karen Golden requesting to modify a previously approved special use permit for a dog breeding facility to now include dog boarding, dog grooming, and dog daycare on 2 parcels of land zoned R2 Suburban Residential District be approved based on the 10 factors and 7 conditions of approval listed in the staff report and as heard at this public hearing. I further move to grant a waiver from the permanent paving requirement as requested by the owner.
Second. Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Mark, would you call the roll?
Strand,
Yes.
Schaefer,
Yes.
Seltzer.
Yep.
Macklin,
Yes,
Martin.
Yes. Okay, so this will go to the county commission.
More likely sometime in September,
Yeah.
first meeting in September, but I'll be in contact with the owner on that exact
Okay.
date.
All right, good enough. Thank you. Good luck. All right, any other business?
I don't have any other business for the board tonight.
Okay.
Does.
I move we adjourn before 5 and set a new record.
There we go.
Hurry up.